Okay, so this will be a short video just showing off a few things. First off, trying out the new weather effects. I decided to try out snow for a change because the dirt was looking a little bit bland. It was okay, I guess, but all the brown and just drab colors everywhere wasn't really very exciting. And I like to keep up with the barren wasteland kind of theme, with very scarce resources. So I thought a snow environment would work pretty well. And it gives me a few advantages as well. For example, I get to play with these weather effects and ice and snow and all that kind of stuff, and mist and fog. And also, I can add in an element to the game where you have to keep warm. Just build a little campfire or something, and every now and then you need to go to keep warm. To go in line with the idea of survival and all that kind of stuff, living off the land and, all the basic features I had planned. Just adds to it a little bit. So anyway, I got a couple new textures, two different snow textures here. I bought them off of TurboSquid, the same company that makes all the other ones I've been using, Substance Database. If you do a search for Allegorithmic, whatever it's called, you should be able to find them. About $5 a piece if you buy them individually, but if you don't need very many, then it's a waste buying one of the packs. Most of the ones I need these days are, very specific, so it's hard to find exactly the right texture in a pack anyway. And I don't feel like paying for their monthly subscription again. It's a bit pricey and kind of a waste, really, once you've had it for at least 1 month. Anyway, so yeah, I think the snow works pretty well for making a nice, desolate type, barren landscape. It looks nice. And there are 3 different particle systems here to create this snow effect, which I may tweak. I haven't decided yet. So there's the main snowflakes with the little snowflake I made in Photoshop. And then there's the kind of dusty mist snow blowing across the ground, which is another little image I made in Photoshop, kind of like a foggy type, whatever you want to call it, just a very smooth image, not no hard edges or anything, just a very soft brush, just creating a little type of cloud, and then a really soft cloud for the background where it's a little bit foggier. That's also a particle effect. I've played around with the fog, but like a global fog, but for a top-down game, I never really could get it the way I wanted it to. It tended to go all over rather than this direction, which is where I wanted it to be. I want this area here to be, fairly clear, because that's where your character's going to be most of the time, in the middle of the screen here. So I didn't want too much fog here, but behind that I wanted a nice little layer of fog, so I just added in particle effect. And I added in some icebergs as well, or whatever you want to call it, frozen ice, whatever. But I had experimented with a actual 3D model that was basically the same thing, but it had thickness to it, and I textured it and all that, but didn't really care for it too much. So this is actually just a simple image I made in Photoshop. Of course, it's the same one, just repeated and resized and rotated, but it's just a simple sprite that's transparent, and it makes a nice little ice effect. I recreated these trees in Modo. I was using the tree creator in Unity, but it's a little bit inefficient. It uses more than one material, and I don't know, it's okay, I guess, but for blowing leaves, it's pretty good, because it's hard to recreate that blowing leaf effect on your own. But if you have still trees like these, then it's easier just to use a model. You have more control over the texture. So I made these in Modo about the same number of polygons as the tree creator, but only one material. I used Substance Painter and just put a little bark texture on there and painted on some snow, some lighter textures for the broken off pieces and whatnot. And I also used Substance Painter to add a new layer to paint some snow on the environment objects, just to make them blend in a little bit, because it is snowing after all, so everything's going to get a little bit of snow on it. It looks a little bit silly having a wall or something with no snow on it whatsoever when there's snow on everything else. Now if I made it so there were barren patches all over and it was mixed snow and dirt and whatnot, then I can get away with it, I guess. But since it is actively snowing, I figured I'd just go ahead and put snow on everything. Plus it makes it blend in a little bit nicer. And also I worked on footprints, so you can see when he walks he'll leave a trail of footprints behind. And that's just a very simple thing I made in Photoshop, just saved as a sprite in Unity. And then resized it and positioned it under the foot, under a child object. It's just so it always be in the correct location. And since there were, two separate feet going this way and that way, I just actually took the sprite and flipped it over, and it worked pretty well for the other foot, since that's the way Unity handles sprites. It just kind of flips them when they're upside down. So that worked pretty well. Didn't have to remake the second image, just had to flip it. And also I had to make one for the other animation. These are actually animation events once on the timeline. When he steps down with his foot, that's when the sprite is created on this animation here as well. Speaking of which, these animations have been tweaked a little bit, just slowed down a little bit so that they kind of feel more solid when he walks, a little bit less sliding. And I may tweak those again in the future, who knows. But both the carrying animation and the regular walk animation have been just tweaked a little bit. Now these footprints that are being created are actually created from an object pool rather than just instantiated and then destroyed over and over again. Since there are going to be quite a few of them, I mean, this one character walking around is going to leave, a dozen footprints wherever he goes. So if there are multiple characters on screen leaving these footprints, then they'll quickly add up. So what I did was I just created a little object pool following that tutorial on Unity's live training. It's just the one called object pooling. But it wasn't too hard. I was already doing that anyway with the flags that you see created when I click. Those are being pulled as well. I can't remember if the arrows are, but I might make them, but I haven't decided yet. It doesn't really matter. I don't need every single thing in the world pulled, just the things that are going to be on screen created and destroyed quite often. And let's see here. I also have a new animation for switching weapons. So when I click on the sword, he'll pull the sword out. This is actually a dagger, but all this is going to change anyways, so all the HUD is going to be redone. I'm going to have probably 3 health bars instead of 2, so I'll probably get rid of these. Have one for hunger, one for cold. Since it's a snow environment, I could have it so you have to be near a campfire to get warm every now and then, just to add a little bit of realism, since these outfits are sort of warm, but not the best in the world. I mean, it's not a heavy jacket or anything. So it's one more thing I can do to make the gameplay a little bit more interesting. So yeah, most of this is going to be changed or gotten rid of. I don't need that, this. These will probably change. Like I said, it'll probably have bars rather than globes anyway. And some icons over here for creating and whatnot, to build objects. Oh, and one more thing while I'm thinking about it. The shadows changed a little bit, and the lighting, I made it a little bit more, well, less sunny since it's snowing, but I still wanted some shadows rather than just a simple blur, just to give a little bit of depth to the characters and kind of solidify the ground a little bit. So I made these shadows softer and lighter. So that's one quick change. Let's see if I missed anything. Oh, a new animation for the idle animation for the sword. Starting to get fairly complex actually with that mechanism, whatever you call it, with Unity, but it's still manageable. Anyway, I think that about takes care of everything. So I'll see you next time.